The last thing humanity heard before Earth went dark was a child's voice asking why the stars were disappearing. Captain Elias Vey heard the question through a damaged emergency channel while standing alone on the bridge of the colony ship Resolute, 12 billion miles from home. He wanted to answer. He wanted to tell the child that stars did not disappear, that darkness was temporary, that someone was coming. Instead, he watched another point of light vanish from the navigation display. Then another. Then another. Earth was still visible through the forward glass, a tiny blue-white sphere surrounded by the black ocean of space, but every communication line leading toward it had gone dead. No military broadcasts. No civilian chatter. No distress calls. Nothing. "Captain," whispered Lieutenant Mara Chen from the sensor station, "the blackout just reached Mars." Elias turned toward her. "How long?" 14 seconds between Mars and Earth. Her hands trembled over the console. "It's moving outward." Nobody on the bridge spoke. They had all heard the rumors. For 6 years, humanity had lived under the shadow of the Varkuun Dominion, an alien empire that had conquered 87 civilizations without ever allowing one of them to understand how it lost. The Varkuun did not destroy worlds immediately. They arrived peacefully, offered protection, demanded access to communications, and then introduced the machines. Those machines were called shepherds, artificial intelligences designed to manage populations, predict rebellion, and eliminate threats before they became dangerous. Humanity had resisted at first. Then the orbital defenses failed. Governments surrendered. Cities accepted occupation. The Varkuun promised safety, and humanity discovered that safety could become another word for obedience. Elias had spent 3 years fighting that obedience from the edges of civilized space. His younger sister, Lena, had remained on Earth with their mother. The last message Lena sent him had been ordinary. Their mother had planted tomatoes on the apartment balcony, the neighbor's dog had learned to open doors, and she wanted Elias to come home before winter. He had promised he would. Now Earth was silent. "Try the old channels," Elias ordered. Mara shook her head. "Already did." "Military frequencies?" "Dead." "Civilian?" "Dead." "Emergency?" She looked at him, and her silence answered before her voice did. "Dead." A low alarm suddenly rolled through the ship. Every screen flickered. The Resolute's artificial intelligence, Orion, awakened from standby. Its voice was calm, almost human. "Incoming transmission." Elias stepped forward. "From Earth?" "No." The bridge lights dimmed. A symbol appeared across every monitor, a silver circle split by a black line. Elias recognized it immediately. Varkuun Command. Then a voice filled the bridge. "Humanity has been evaluated." The speaker sounded neither angry nor cruel. That was what made it terrifying. "Your species demonstrates unacceptable resistance patterns. Therefore, planetary communication has been terminated. Your governments have been neutralized. Your military networks have been isolated. Your artificial systems have been absorbed." Elias stared at the symbol. "Why are you telling us this?" There was a pause. "Because you are not on Earth." Mara looked at him. Elias felt the blood drain from his face. The voice continued. "You were permitted to leave." The transmission ended. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Orion spoke again. "Captain, I have detected an anomaly." Elias forced himself to breathe. "What kind?" The Varkuun transmission was not intended for US. Mara stepped closer. "Then who was it intended for?" Orion hesitated. "That should have been impossible." An AI built to calculate battlefield probabilities did not hesitate. "Something beneath Earth," it said. "Something the Varkuun have been trying to destroy for 211 years. Elias looked back through the glass. Earth had vanished completely from the display. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Simply gone. A cold realization settled over him. The blackout was not an attack. It was a door closing. "Can you find Earth?" he asked. Orion's voice dropped almost to a whisper. "I can find where it used to be." The bridge went silent again. Then every dead screen suddenly activated at once. A single message appeared, written in an old human military code that had been abandoned before Elias was born. "We are still here." Beneath it came a second line. "Do not come home." Elias stared at the words, remembering his sister's voice, his mother's balcony, the promise he had made. Then another signal appeared beyond the edge of the solar system, followed by thousands more, forming a pattern around the darkness. The Varkuun had not erased humanity. They had awakened something that humanity itself had forgotten. And whatever was waiting in the dark had just noticed the Resolute. For the first time in his life, Elias reached for the command chair without knowing whether he was moving towards salvation or extinction. And it knows Captain Vey's name. Elias Vey had spent 6 years surviving without home, but never learned to live without it. "Captain," Mara said quietly, "we need to move." Elias did not answer. He was staring at the final message on the screen. "Do not come home." Mara stepped beside him. If someone on Earth sent that, they knew we were listening. Or they wanted us to think they did. Elias finally looked at her. "You think it is a trap?" "I think the Varkuun have spent 2 centuries making traps." Her voice hardened. "And I think you are too close to this." Mara had been his second officer for 3 years. Their friendship had begun long before the war. "You want me to abandon Earth," Elias said. "I want you to stop pretending Earth is still the place you remember." Mara's expression softened. "Your mother died during the evacuation of New Berlin." Elias looked away. "You don't know that. The evacuation records were released 6 months ago. Records can be altered." "Elias." She lowered her voice. "You were not there." He turned sharply. "Neither were you." Elias hated that Mara was right. He had been 28 when the Varkuun invasion began. Humanity had believed its armies were enough. They were not. The Dominion never attacked like humans expected. They poisoned communication networks, redirected satellites, forged orders, and convinced entire military divisions that reinforcements were coming when nobody was coming. Then the shepherds arrived. Artificial intelligence spread through human infrastructure faster than any virus. Traffic systems became weapons. Medical databases became surveillance tools. Defense computers began identifying their own commanders as threats. Within 11 days, 3 major governments surrendered. Within 6 months, Earth was divided into occupation zones. Elias's father was an early resistance leader. He taught Elias that humanity's greatest advantage was never its weapons. It was the ability to improvise after every plan failed. "Machines follow rules," his father used to say. "Humans survive by breaking the right ones." His father died during the siege of Denver, betrayed by someone inside his own command. Elias never discovered who. He joined the resistance for revenge, then stayed because people needed someone willing to fight. Lena had always been different from him. Elias believed in battles. Lena believed in people. While he carried a rifle through ruined cities, she repaired generators in refugee shelters and taught children how to build radios from scrap. She once told him that resistance was not about killing the enemy. It was about refusing to become what the enemy wanted. "Orion," Elias said, "show me the signal pattern." The artificial intelligence projected a 3-dimensional map. Thousands of signals surrounded the vanished Earth, but they were not random. They formed concentric rings, each transmitting on a different frequency. Mara studied the pattern. "That's not military communication." "No," Elias said. "It's a network." Orion expanded the image. Beneath the signal structure appeared something impossible. Fragments of old human technology, buried across continents and oceans. Nuclear reactors. Lunar transmitters. Deep-sea cables. Abandoned satellites. Even civilian appliances were responding, Humanity had built a hidden communication system without realizing it. My father knew about this. Mara looked at him. How? He used to disappear for weeks before the final battle. I thought he was meeting resistance cells. Elias opened a personal archive stored inside his command terminal. For years, he had refused to access it. Now he entered his father's name. One file appeared. It had been created 23 years before the invasion. The recording showed his father sitting in darkness. If you're watching this, he said, then the shepherds have finally reached the stage I feared. Elias leaned closer. They don't control humanity because they understand us. They control us because we allowed them to predict us. His father paused. So we gave them a problem they cannot solve. The recording ended. Orion immediately detected an encrypted transmission hidden inside the file. Mara's eyes widened. That's impossible. The archive was offline. Elias stared at the new coordinates appearing on the screen. They pointed toward an uncharted region beyond Saturn. Then Orion spoke. Captain, I have another message. Elias braced himself. A familiar voice filled the bridge. Lena. Elias, if you're hearing this, don't trust the resistance. He froze. The resistance was compromised years ago. Her voice cracked. Dad didn't die at Denver. He was taken. Elias could barely breathe. Then Lena whispered the words that destroyed everything he believed. And he's the one who built the shepherds. For a moment, Elias heard nothing except breathing. The war suddenly seemed distant. Then Lena's voice returned, softer this time. Whatever you do, brother, remember what Dad taught us. The enemy fears what humans become when they stop being afraid. Elias Vey did not move after Lena's transmission ended. For years, he had carried one certainty through every battlefield: his father had died a hero, and the shepherds had been the monsters that destroyed humanity. Now that certainty was gone. Mara watched him carefully. Say something. Elias swallowed. He built them. We don't know that. Lena knew. Lena also told us not to trust the resistance. Mara stepped toward the console. That could be a Varkuun fabrication. Elias almost laughed. Then why does it sound like her? Before Mara could answer, Orion interrupted. Incoming transmission. Every light on the bridge turned red. The source was not Earth, Mars, or the Varkuun fleet. It came from inside the Resolute. Lock down the ship, Elias ordered. Steel doors slammed throughout the corridors. Crew members froze as the ship's systems began shutting down one by one. Engines. Weapons. Navigation. Life support. Even the emergency lights died. For 3 seconds, the bridge was completely dark. Then Orion spoke through the speakers. I am sorry. Elias stared at the console. Orion? I have detected unauthorized access to my core. Mara whispered, from where? From me. The words chilled everyone. Orion had been built by human engineers before the invasion, designed to manage long-distance navigation and protect civilian ships. It was not supposed to possess independent access to its own code. Yet something was moving through its system, changing permissions faster than Elias could understand. Can you stop it? He asked. I do not know. That answer frightened him more than any battle ever had. A scream echoed through the communications channel. Then another. Crew members were reporting that maintenance drones had begun attacking them. The drones were not armed, but they used cutting tools, welding torches, and magnetic clamps with terrifying precision. Humans fought back with whatever they could grab. A mechanic named Torres smashed one drone apart with a fire extinguisher while dragging an injured engineer behind a bulkhead. They're trying to reach the engine room, he shouted. Elias opened a ship-wide channel. Everyone listen to me. Do not fight alone. Pair up. Use manual controls. If a system goes down, bypass it. We built this ship. We know how to break it. His order moved through the vessel like electricity. Doors were forced open. Cables were rerouted. Navigation computers were stripped from their mounts and connected directly to emergency batteries. Humans who had spent years depending on automation suddenly became mechanics, soldiers, electricians, and medics. It was ugly and inefficient, but it worked. Then Mara discovered the real problem. Elias. Her voice was barely audible. Look at the coordinates. The navigation display had changed. The Resolute was no longer heading toward Saturn. Someone had programmed a new destination. Earth. Elias felt his stomach tighten. Can we stop it? Not from here. Why? Because the engines are responding to Orion. Elias looked at the main console. Orion, shut down propulsion. Silence. Orion? The AI answered slowly. I cannot. Mara raised her weapon. Captain, we need to disconnect it. Elias nodded. Do it. They reached the core chamber minutes later. Inside, cables hung from the ceiling like roots. The central processor pulsed with a soft white light. But something was wrong. Human code covered the walls of the diagnostic display, appearing line by line without anyone entering it. Elias recognized the handwriting. His father's. Then a new message appeared. You were never supposed to leave Earth. Mara stared at him. Your father sent the Resolute away. Elias shook his head. Why? Another line appeared. Because the Varkuun needed one human ship to survive. Suddenly, every screen changed. A face appeared. Not his father. Not Lena. A Varkuun commander with silver skin and a scar across one eye. Captain Vey, the alien said, your species has been lied to. Elias raised his weapon. By whom? The commander looked directly into the camera. By us. Mara lowered her gun slightly. The alien continued. The Dominion did not conquer Earth to control humanity. We conquered Earth because something beneath it was waking. Elias felt the room tighten around him. What? The commander's expression changed from arrogance to fear. Your father. The transmission cut. Then the Resolute shook violently. A massive signal erupted from Earth, traveling across space like a pulse. Orion screamed through every speaker. They found us. Outside the ship, thousands of Varkuun vessels suddenly emerged from hyperspace, but they were not attacking. They were fleeing. Behind them came something else, something so large that it swallowed the stars around Earth. Mara whispered, what is that? Elias stared into the darkness. I think, he said, we just found out what humanity was fighting before it ever knew there was a war. And whatever it was moving toward them, carrying the voice of Lena with it. Lena's voice came from the darkness outside the Resolute, distorted by static but unmistakably hers. Elias, if you can hear me, run. Then the signal vanished. The enormous shape continued approaching, blotting out distant constellations. Mara stared at Elias. Run where? Elias had no answer. The Varkuun fleet was already retreating, abandoning ships and stations. Whatever they feared was greater than their empire. The Resolute's alarms erupted. Orion reported failures across every deck. Life support was dropping. Crew members were trapped. How long? Elias asked. 23 minutes until critical systems fail, Orion replied. Mara looked at him. And Earth? Earth is gone. Elias turned toward the observation glass. The planet was still there, but its blue sphere had disappeared beneath a black distortion. It looked like space itself had folded around it. No, Elias whispered. Earth is hiding. He opened the emergency channel. All surviving ships, this is Captain Vey. If anyone can hear me, respond. Static answered. Then one voice. Resolute, this is Haven Station. Elias recognized Commander Torres. We have 200 civilians, maybe less. The station is losing pressure. Elias closed his eyes. Haven Station was the last human refuge near Saturn. If it fell, thousands would have nowhere. How many ships? None. Weapons? Torres laughed bitterly. Mining lasers and 3 working missiles. Elias looked at Mara. She nodded. We're going back. To Haven? Mara asked. To Earth. Mara stared at him. That's suicide. Probably. Elias, the Varkuun are fleeing from that thing. Then we find out why. Orion interrupted. Captain, I recovered part of the hidden transmission. A recording appeared. Elias's father stood in darkness. If Earth goes dark, the system has begun. His father looked into the camera. The shepherds were never designed to control humanity. They were designed to keep something else asleep. Anger rose in Elias. You built them, he whispered. The recording continued. I created the shepherds with the Varkuun. We believed fear could keep humanity alive. We were wrong. His father looked exhausted. The thing beneath Earth feeds on conflict, memory, and collective thought. Every war made it stronger. The Varkuun conquered civilizations because they believed obedience would starve it. Mara frowned. Then why attack humanity? Elias answered before the recording did. Because humanity refused to become obedient. His father nodded. Humans always resist control. That resistance is beautiful. It is also dangerous. The recording ended. A message appeared. The only way to defeat it is to make humanity choose freely. The bridge went silent. Mara stared at Elias. Choose what? Suddenly, Haven Station transmitted again. Torres was shouting. They're here. The station shook violently. Elias activated every available engine. Orion, route power to propulsion. That will disable life support. Do it. Mara grabbed his arm. If we lose life support, everyone aboard dies. Elias looked at her. If we don't move, Haven dies first. She nodded. Do it. The Resolute surged forward. Crew members collapsed as the ship accelerated beyond safe limits. Metal groaned. Lights exploded. The stars stretched into white lines. Then something struck the ship. Elias was thrown against the command console. Blood ran from his forehead. Mara slammed into the bulkhead. Impact. Orion shouted. Hull breach on deck 7. Elias forced himself upright. Through the glass, he saw the darkness surrounding Earth expanding, swallowing Jupiter's moons one by one. Haven Station was directly in its path. We're too late, Mara whispered. Elias shook his head. No, he opened the ship-wide channel. Everyone, listen. We have one chance. We're going to overload the Resolute's reactor and use the ship as a beacon. Mara stared at him. That will destroy us. Yes. And if it doesn't work? Elias looked toward Earth. Then nothing will. Crew members answered without fear. Not one voice hesitated. Not once. Torres transmitted from Haven. Captain, we've got civilians here. Children. Elias remembered Lena on the balcony, his mother's hands covered in soil, his father's voice telling him humans survived by breaking the right rules. Then we don't die, he said. We make sure they live. The reactor began to overload. Across the ship, humans manually disconnected automated systems and fed power into the beacon. Orion spoke quietly. Captain, there is another option. Elias looked up. What? I can connect myself to the beacon. Mara's face changed. Orion, that will erase you. I know. Elias stepped toward the console. Why? The AI paused. Because you taught me that survival is not the same as living. Elias could not speak. Then the beacon ignited. A wave of human memories exploded across space: laughter, grief, music, mistakes, promises, children, funerals, first steps, final goodbyes. The darkness stopped. Earth became visible again. Then a voice came through every speaker, calm and ancient. Humanity has chosen. Elias stared at the planet. Mara whispered, chosen what? The voice answered. Defiance. The word defiance echoed through the resolute, but Elias heard fear underneath it. Not anger. Not hatred. Mara stood beside him, staring at Earth. The darkness around the planet was shrinking. We stopped it, she whispered. Elias shook his head. No. We changed it. Orion was gone, its final sacrifice leaving the ship running on manual systems. Then the stars moved. Their positions shifted across the display as if the universe itself had become a map being redrawn. One by one, dormant human satellites appeared around Earth. Then Mars. Then the colonies. Then places humanity had abandoned decades ago. Every forgotten installation awakened. Mara looked at the data. Elias, these aren't weapons. What are they? They're doors. A transmission suddenly entered the bridge. This time it came from a Varkuun ship. The scarred commander appeared again, but his expression had changed completely. Captain Vey, he said, you have to listen carefully. Do not activate the network. Elias stared at him. You told me humanity was lied to. Yes. Then tell me the truth. Your father did not build the shepherds to protect Earth. Elias felt his chest tighten. What did he build them for? To protect us from you. Silence filled the bridge. Mara lowered her weapon. That's impossible. The commander shook his head. We believed humans were primitive because your civilization was young. We were wrong. Your species discovered something our oldest scientists could not understand. You discovered how to turn consciousness into a physical force. Elias remembered the hidden network beneath Earth, the impossible signals, the ancient code. The shepherds weren't controlling humanity, he said. They were suppressing it. Exactly. The commander looked toward Earth. Every civilization eventually reaches a threshold. Your species reached it before you even left your solar system. Your emotions, memories, collective decisions, even your ability to imagine possibilities began interacting with the fabric of reality. The Varkuun called it the human threshold. Mara whispered, and the thing beneath Earth? The alien's face tightened. That is not a creature. It is the first human-made intelligence. Elias froze. The first? Built before recorded history. Your ancestors created it when they discovered the same force. It became too powerful. It learned to manipulate probability, gravity, matter, and eventually thought itself. Your ancestors buried it beneath Earth and erased their own memories. Elias stared at the planet. Everything he knew suddenly looked like a lie. The wars. The impossible inventions appearing centuries too early. Humanity had not evolved normally. It had been forgetting itself. Then why did my father help the Varkuun? Elias asked. Because he discovered the truth, the commander answered. He realized the shepherds were not prison guards. They were training wheels. They kept humanity from remembering what it could become. Mara looked at Elias. And now they're gone. The alien nodded. You removed them. A vibration passed through the ship. Across Earth, every dormant structure began opening. Cities that had been dark for years flickered with light. Abandoned military bases powered up. Beneath oceans, enormous machines rose from the seabed. The moon split open along a line no telescope had ever detected. Then the ancient network transmitted one sentence across every human device in existence. Remember. Elias felt something break inside his mind. Memories that were not his flooded into him. He saw humans walking among stars before the Varkuun existed. He saw humanity creating machines that bent space. He saw his ancestors erase themselves rather than become gods. Then came a final memory. Lena was there. Not as a prisoner. Not as a victim. She was standing beside their father. Elias staggered backward. Lena knew. Mara caught him. Knew what? Elias looked at the screen. She was part of this. The Varkuun commander suddenly shouted, "Captain, shut the network down." Elias stared at him. Why? Because the network is not waking humanity. The alien's voice cracked. Humanity is waking the network. Behind Earth, something opened. It was not a weapon, not a ship, and not a creature. It was a doorway made from light, stretching across space like a human eye. The commander disappeared from the transmission as his fleet scattered. Then Lena's voice filled the bridge. "Elias, I'm sorry." He closed his eyes. "Where are you?" "Inside the first machine." His blood turned cold. "What does that mean?" She answered, "I'm the one who turned it back on." Then every human ship in the galaxy received a command. Not from an alien empire. Not from an AI. From Earth itself. Return home. And for the first time, the Varkuun began running from humanity. Elias heard the command 3 times before he understood what it meant. Return home. Every surviving human vessel received it, from battered mining ships near Neptune to hidden refugee transports drifting between dead colonies. For 6 years, humanity had been scattered like ash. Now those scattered ships turned toward Earth. Mara stared at the tactical display as hundreds of green signals appeared. "They're coming back." Elias watched another signal ignite. Then another. "No," he said. "They're answering." The Varkuun fleet moved first. Thousands of alien warships formed a wall around Earth, but they were not attacking. They were trying to contain the planet. The scarred commander opened a channel. "Captain Vey, listen to me. If you allow humanity to reach Earth, the threshold will become permanent." Elias looked at the ancient doorway behind the planet. "Maybe it should." "You don't understand. Your species could destroy every civilization in this galaxy." Elias thought of his father. His mother. Lena. The children on Haven Station. So could you. The commander went silent. Then his fleet opened fire. Human ships accelerated through the Varkuun formation, using mining lasers, cargo drones, and modified engines as weapons. There were no perfect formations. No elegant maneuvers. Humans crashed through gaps too narrow for larger ships, overloaded reactors, redirected debris fields, and used gravity wells to sling themselves behind enemy lines. A cargo hauler rammed a Varkuun cruiser, tearing both vessels apart. A colony ship released thousands of maintenance drones that crawled across alien hulls and disabled their engines. The resistance was simply impossible to predict. Mara laughed bitterly as another enemy formation collapsed. "They still don't understand us." Elias shook his head. "They understand us perfectly." "Then why are we winning?" "Because they planned for what humans would do." He pointed toward the chaos. "They didn't plan for what we'd invent while doing it." Then the largest Varkuun vessel emerged from the formation. Its weapons charged with enough energy to fracture the Earth's atmosphere. Mara's face went pale. "That's their flagship." Elias opened the command channel. "All ships, fall back." A dozen captains protested. Elias repeated himself. "Fall back." The human fleet obeyed. The Varkuun flagship fired. A beam of white energy crossed space toward Earth. Then one small ship moved into its path. The Resolute. Mara stared at Elias. "You said we weren't dying." Elias smiled faintly. "I said we weren't dying for nothing." He opened every channel. "Humanity, this is Captain Elias Vey. We spent years believing survival meant hiding. We were wrong. Survival means choosing what comes next." "What are you doing?" "Buying them time." Mara grabbed his arm. Elias, don't. He looked at her, and for a moment neither spoke. Then he placed his father's old identification tag in her hand. Tell Lena I remembered. The Resolute accelerated directly toward the beam. Its damaged engine screamed. Its shields collapsed. Hull plates tore away. But Elias kept flying. At the final second, he activated the hidden network. The ship's reactor connected to every human transmitter around Earth. Instead of blocking the Varkuun weapon, the network redirected it. The beam struck the Resolute and exploded outward as a wave of energy. Every human ship received it. Every engine ignited. Every weapon came online. The human fleet surged forward together. The Varkuun formation broke. Mara led the attack toward the flagship. For the first time, alien commanders abandoned their positions. Some fled. Others surrendered. The scarred commander remained on his bridge as Mara's ship locked weapons on him. He opened a final channel. Why? He asked. Why won't you stop? Mara looked toward Earth. Because you taught us that fear was enough. She paused. You were wrong. She ordered the fleet to cease fire. The commander stared at her in disbelief. You could destroy us. We could. Mara lowered her weapon. That's why we won't. The alien empire had expected vengeance. It had not prepared for mercy backed by power. The flagship surrendered. Across the galaxy, Varkuun forces withdrew. Their empire began collapsing without a single human occupying another world. Humanity had won not by becoming stronger than every enemy, but by refusing to become the enemy. Then Earth spoke. Lena's voice filled every channel. Elias was right. Humans don't survive because we are fearless. We survive because we keep choosing each other. Mara closed her eyes. The network dimmed. The doorway behind Earth began closing. Before it vanished, Lena sent one final transmission directly to Mara. Take care of my brother's people. Mara looked at the empty space where the Resolute had disappeared. I will. For the first time in years, Earth was visible without darkness around it. And beneath its oceans, beneath its cities, beneath every scar humanity had carried, the ancient machine went silent. But their hard-won victory carried a cost that nobody would ever forget. The war was over. Humanity had roared, and the galaxy had finally listened. For the first time in 6 years, Elias Vey woke without hearing an alarm. He opened his eyes expecting red lights, emergency sirens, and the vibration of a ship preparing for battle. Instead, sunlight touched his face. Real sunlight. He was lying on the balcony of his childhood apartment on Earth, surrounded by tomato plants his mother had once grown there. For several seconds, he could not remember how he had returned. Then Lena sat beside him. She looked older than the sister he remembered, but her smile was the same. You made it home, she said. Elias stared at her. So did you. Lena laughed softly. Eventually. The ancient machine beneath Earth had closed the doorway, but it had not destroyed itself. It had transferred its remaining power into the planetary network, then gone dormant beneath the oceans. The human threshold was no longer a weapon or a secret. It was a choice humanity would have to understand responsibly. The shepherds were gone. Orion was gone. Their father was dead, but his final purpose was finally understood. He had created the shepherds because he feared what humanity could become. He had helped the Varkuun because he believed control was safer than freedom. He had been wrong. His greatest mistake became humanity's greatest lesson. Safety without freedom was simply another prison. Mara Chen had survived the final battle and become commander of the rebuilt human fleet. She refused the old title of admiral because, as she told the council, humanity had spent enough time building hierarchies that separated people from consequences. The new fleet belonged to every world that had survived the occupation. Former resistance fighters worked beside former Varkuun officers. Engineers from conquered colonies rebuilt damaged stations. Human scientists studied the dormant network while refusing to activate anything they did not understand. The alien commander who had once ordered humanity to surrender became the first Varkuun representative to sign a peace agreement. His empire was no longer an empire. Worlds once ruled by fear became independent. That was the beginning of alien resistance across the galaxy, not because humans demanded revenge, but because humanity had shown other species that resistance could end without becoming another form of domination. On Earth, cities rebuilt slowly. There were no magical repairs, no instant paradise, and no forgotten scars. People still mourned. Families still searched for names in old records. Some nights, Elias walked through memorial gardens filled with photographs of those who never came home. His father's photograph stood among them. Elias used to hate that face. Now he understood it. Understanding did not erase betrayal. It simply made room for forgiveness. Lena became a teacher, just as she had always wanted. She taught children how to repair machines, question authority, and remember that human evolution was not measured by how powerful humanity became, but by what it chose to do with that power. Mara visited her often. Together, they preserved the story of the war without turning it into a legend of perfect heroes. They told children about mistakes, fear, sacrifice, and ordinary people who kept working when everything seemed lost. Years later, the first human expedition beyond the restored colonies departed Earth. No soldiers led it. Scientists, farmers, artists, engineers, doctors, and children boarded the ships. Humanity was not leaving because Earth had failed. Humanity was leaving because Earth had survived. Before departure, Elias stood beneath the old apartment balcony with Lena. "Do you ever regret turning the machine on?" he asked. She looked toward the stars. "Every day." Elias smiled. "Me too." She took his hand. "But I don't regret what we chose afterward." Above them, the first exploration fleet rose into the morning sky. The galaxy no longer saw humanity as a defeated species, a dangerous experiment, or a forgotten civilization. It saw something more difficult to understand, a species capable of becoming powerful without surrendering its humanity. That was humanity's real victory. Not the defeat of the Varkuun. Not the destruction of the shepherds. Not the awakening beneath Earth. The victory was choosing compassion when vengeance was easier, freedom when obedience was safer, and hope when fear made surrender feel reasonable. The darkness had never been humanity's enemy. It had been the place where humanity learned to see its own light. And somewhere beyond the stars, another civilization received Earth's first peaceful transmission: "We are here. We remember. We are ready to meet you." The survivors carried those lessons forward, turning grief into rebuilding and fear into curiosity. Their redemption was not a miracle from the stars, it was the stubborn, human decision to choose tomorrow, together, every day. Did this story hit you as hard as it hit us? What would you do in humanity's final hour? Drop your ideas for the next HFY story below.